What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. Today we got a reaction to Anthrax's top 10 songs, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter and patron of the channel, River. Thank you, River. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below, the Patreon link on the end screen. We could not do it without the patrons. Running a free trial. Super appreciate you checking it out. So River says, now we move on to Anthrax. It's sort of odd one out of the big four. So the big four thrash metal. River's doing the top 10 songs of the big four of thrash metal. Next month's Metallica, we already have up Megadeth and Slayer, so go check those out after this. River says, unlike Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth, Anthrax hail from New York, East Coast instead of West Coast, where the genre really has a lot of its major bands form. Scott Ian, founder of Anthrax and sole original longstanding permanent member of the band, plays for Mr. Bungle and has been a mainstay of many a top guitarist list. Now, if you don't know anything about him, Anthrax is an American thrash metal band from New York City, as River mentioned, formed in 1981 by rhythm guitarist Scott Ian and bassist Dan Lilker. The group is considered one of the leaders of the thrash metal scene from the 80s and is part of the big four of the genre. I already mentioned Megadeth, Metallica, and Slayer. They're also one of the first thrash metal bands, along with Overkill and Nuclear Assault, to emerge from the East Coast. The band's current lineup, so right now, 2025, consists of Scott Ian, drummer Charlie Benetti, bassist Frank Bello, vocalist Joey Belladonna, and lead guitarist Jonathan Denias. Might be saying some names wrong, guys. I'm doing the best I can. Anthrax's lineup has changed numerous times over their career, leaving Ian as the only constant member of the band. Ian and Benate, who replaced one-time drummer Greg D'Angelo in 1983, are the only two members to appear on all of Anthrax's albums, while Bello has been a member of Anthrax since 1984, replacing Wilker. So these guys have still been around a long time. After cycling through a number of members, Anthrax released their debut album, Fistful of Metal, in 1984, singer Neil Turbin. Turbin was replaced by Joey Belladonna later that year, stabilizing the band's lineup. Their third album, in 1987, Among the Living, which brought the band mainstream success for its first time, is recognized as one of the greatest thrash metal albums. The band's next two outings, State of Euphoria in 88 and Persistence of Time in 90, further cemented the reputation as one of the most successful thrash metal bands, with the latter giving Anthrax their first Grammy Award nom. In 1992, Anthrax signed to Elektra Records for $10 million, and Belladonna was replaced by John Bush of Armored Saint. Bush's first album with Anthrax, Sound of White Noise in 93, reached number 7 on the Billboard 200 chart, their greatest chart success, and spawned the radio hit Only. Anthrax's subsequent albums with Bush would experience less critical and commercial success. The band would part ways with Elektra following the release of Stomp 442 in 1995 due to a lack of promotional support. And Volume 8, The Threat is Real in 1998, suffered from the bankruptcy of their record label. So issues, as you're going to have if you're around forever, you're going to have these things. Bush left Anthrax in 2005, after which the band reunited with Belladonna and lead guitarist Dan Spitz. After Belladonna and Spitz's departure 2 years later in 2007, they recruited singer Dan Nelson and commenced work on a new album, although Nelson would part ways with the band in 2009. Following a short-lived reunion with Bush, Belladonna rejoined the band for a third time in 2010. Their first album with Belladonna in 21 years, Worship Music in 2011, was released to critical and commercial success, reaching number 12 on the Billboard 200. The band's most recent album to date, For All Kings, was released in 2016. They got 11 studio albums, several other albums, 26 singles, including collaborating on a single with American hip-hop group Public Enemy, which may be in this list. It may be coming up soon. 4 of the band's studio albums have also achieved gold certifications. According to Nielsen SoundScan, Anthrax sold 2.5 million records in the U.S. from 91 to 2004, with total worldwide sales of 10 million. So, respectable sales, but not huge. I don't think I know any Anthrax songs. I know who Scott Ian is, but I don't know any Anthrax songs. If you haven't been to this before, the music won't be in the video, but it will be at the Vimeo link below. Don't click on that. That's just me showing you, but click on the Vimeo link below. Let's jump into it. And yeah, we did get to this song quick. Bring the Noise from the Attack of the Killer Bees in 1991, a compilation album. River says this track is one of the many crossovers for metal and rap early on. The story behind it, Scott Ian wanted to collab with Public Enemy and pioneering rap rock as a genre due to their collab alongside others, is one that is very much a foundation of future bands to come. I found it's a song by Public Enemy. It was included on the soundtrack of the 1987 film Less Than Zero. It was released as a single later that year, and it became the first song on the group's 1988 album, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. A fantastic album. The single reached number 56 on the Billboard Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs charts. Now, Anthrax recorded a version, this one, which sampled the vocals from the original Public Enemy recording. Chuck D has stated that upon the initial request of Anthrax, he, quote, didn't take them wholeheartedly seriously. And you can understand that, right? You'd be like, what? But after the collaboration was done, he said, quote, it made too much sense and was eventually included on both the Anthrax compilation, which I was just telling you, Attack of the Killer Bees, and as the final track on Public Enemy's own Apocalypse 91, The Enemy Strikes Black album. The release was followed by a joint tour featuring the two groups, which had to be a crazy interesting in the audience, right? With shows ending with both groups on stage performing the song together. Chuck D went on to say that the shows on the tour were, quote, some of the hardest they ever experienced, and that at the start of the tour, Anthrax commenced to destroy, slaughter, and wipe the effing stage with Public Enemy as the opener, forcing the group to not only up the intensity of their set, but to innovate by having a dedicated lightboard operator, a first in hip-hop. According to Chuck D, the show intensities eventually began to even out, and when the two bands joined on stage for Bring the Noise, it was shrapnel. So they pushed Public Enemy to raise it even another level. This recording was ranked number 12 on VH1's 2006 list of the 40 greatest metal songs and is featured in the video games Die Hard Trilogy, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw, WWE WrestleMania 21, WWE Day of Reckoning, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Pro Skater HD, Pro Skater 1+2, and Rock Band 4 as a DLC. The Anthrax version did reach 10 in New Zealand and 14 in the UK. You're going to find on this list they're going to have some success in the UK that they just don't have chart-wise in the US. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, River. All right, Bring the Noise. That was awesome. That was awesome. The bringing together of those two powerhouses and intensities, not to try to steal from the intro, the intensities on stage during the concert, but that was well done, and I would have never thought that would have worked either. I mean, I figured it did since it was on this list, and River's very good at picking fantastic music, but that really, really worked well for me, and I would be surprised if it's not on my favorites. And next up, we have Antisocial from the State of Euphoria album in 1988. River says a cover of French hard rock band Trust's 1980 anthem. It is heavier than the original and in the alternative English lyrics. They actually did do a version in French on the No Hit Wonders anthology. I prefer, though, the version from State of Euphoria. And for the Trust version, it was played on mainstream radio stations, RTL in France, Enter, which never really happened, helping the album sell over 800,000 copies in 1980. We're talking about 800,000 copies in France, not in the US. We're talking about a much smaller population base. That's crazy. Evoking a dehumanized, individualistic, and brutal society, the lyrics capture the alienation of a generation disillusioned by the excesses of its elders and the 1973 oil crisis. We'll see if the Anthrax version is going to come in on the same type of stuff. And as I mentioned for the first time, UK, this went to 44. Antisocial, very good song as well. Super enjoy that. Joey Belladonna is on vocals there. I think, the whole group coming in, you're antisocial, sticks in your head. And the lyrics are great because it is talking about, coming against the rich who all they care about is getting richer. And if that's really what it's all about, our protagonist doesn't want anything to do with that. So and the instrumentation on both of these songs, I mean, good. Of course, the first song being it's going to be a little different, but really rocking on this one. Next up at number 8, we got Breathing Lightning from the album For All Kings in 2016. River says, Breathing Lightning is easily my favorite track of their post-2010 releases. Worship Music was not, in my opinion, a good album, but For All Kings was a solid release with quite a few really good tracks. This one feels anthemic and powerful. Joey Belladonna sounds great on this track. I found Ian has said that Breathing Lightning is lyrically influenced by author Stephen King. He said, quote, if I had to pick one thing that I love the most from him, it would be the Dark Tower books. The character Roland. It's just something that stays with me a lot, this character from those books. So I kind of re-entered that world again because I wrote Lone Justice way back when on the Spreading the Disease record, which is based on that character. And I decided to revisit it because metaphorically, there's so many things you could use it for. I'm kind of weaving in and out of reality and fantasy in that song. And Breathing Lightning, of course, is a metaphor for shooting. All right, Breathing Lightning. It's a fantastic song. Songwriting's really good. I mean, it could be controversial. I'm surprised it wasn't more. It would be, I think, if it came out now. But the melody in it, I mean, it's definitely anthemic, as River mentioned. I think it's a great song. That's a good song. It's a great song. I'm surprised it's at number 8, but I mean, I haven't heard the top 7, so let's get to it. I'll go ahead. Death from Above from the Fistful of Metal album in 1984. River says from the first album they put out, as I've said, I want to touch on the earliest release I can, and Death from Above is my favorite track of the first Anthrax album. Fistful of Metal. Pretty simple. Let's get it. Jet Fighter. Jet Fighter. Neil Turbin on vocals there. There's 32 years that separate this from the previous song that I love, Breathing Lightning. This is a different sound. This is the sound of 1984, and they did it really, really well. So I enjoyed it. Thought it was really good for that time period. Don't like it nearly as much as Breathing Lightning. Like I said, you're talking about over 3 decades of difference here. Music has changed. So well done. All right, we're going to go ahead just 1 year to finish off the top half. Number 6, Armed and Dangerous from Spreading the Disease album in 1985. This is the second studio album. It was the band's first album to feature Joey Belladonna and bassist Frank Bello. The song is about a convict who is presumably unjustly thrown in prison. The convict ends up escaping and is hell-bent on taking revenge on those who wrongly locked him up in the name of the law. Probably the police. Prior to appearing on this album, the song appeared on the Anthrax EP of the same name with a lengthened intro. So if you're a diehard Anthrax fan, you may know that version more than this one. Powerhouse arrangement there. Of course, you got Scott and you got Dan Spitz on guitar work there. The guitars were fantastic. The drumming's from Charlie Benante. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. Interesting that this song, the lyricist on it's Neil Turbin, but he was expelled from the band, so he wasn't singing it. Of course, Joey was, but kind of crazy that he wrote it, thrown out of the band, and they end up recording it. But, he's getting the royalties for the writing on there. But thought that was really good. Like I said, it's a powerhouse vocal from Joey, but the instrumentation on it is great. They really showed out on it. All right, we're going to stay on that same album, Spreading the Disease in 1985 with Madhouse. River says, probably the most well-known of Anthrax's songs among non-metalheads due to its appearance on 2002's Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which I'm getting really old because I remember when that came out. I can't believe that was 2002. As well as on both Rock Band and a Guitar Hero game. Fun fact, Scott Ian is a fan of Stephen King. I already mentioned that. 2 tracks on this list are about Stephen King's stories. Stephen King also referenced this song in his story, Finn, in 2022. Only single from the album I found. It's about going insane. In 2009, it was named the 46th best hard rock song, not metal song, hard rock song of all time by VH1. Joey on lead here. It's a madhouse, or so they claim. He wants to get out of the madhouse, and you can't blame him. Great guitar work. Again, Scott's playing the intro. Dan Spitz is playing lead on the rest of it, but obviously Scott is in there as well. But really well done song as well. I like both of these last songs from the second album. They really brought it, and this would have been incredibly well received in '86. I just didn't know about these guys, and it was kind of popular radio and no access, or didn't know anybody that listened to this kind of stuff, or I would have definitely been into it. Next up, we have Cotton and Mosh from the Among the Living album in 1986, ranked 29th on VH1's 40 Greatest Metal Songs list. So the last song was hard rock. This is metal. The song details Scott Ian's frustration with different situations, likened to being stuck in the most metal of situations, the mosh pit. Apparently, the inspiration for the song came from an instance when Ian's guitar tech injured his back in a mosh pit. When asked what happened, he replied, "I got caught in a mosh." You see the song below on Spotify. We're actually going to watch a live performance of this. This live performance was put up on March 9th of 2018. I don't know when it's from. I'm going to assume it's from around then, but don't hold me to that. I couldn't find when it was from. Let's check it out. All right, Cotton and Mosh. I thought that performance was incredibly impressive. They really brought it. I love the energy. The guitar playing was fantastic. The drumming, all of it, man. Lead vocals are powerful. Love seeing the crowd interact. Older crowd, right? Because they grew up with Anthrax. So the mosh pit was going on, but maybe not as crazy as it would have been 30 years before, right? But really well done. And I'm really glad that River chose this performance because it really showed their musicianship. Now we go to Among the Living from the album of the same name in 1986. River says, another of Anthrax's songs written with the story of Stephen King's in mind. This one based on The Stand. Easily one of the best songs of theirs and the title track of what I think is their best album. The Stand, I read that book way back in the day. Miniseries, maybe? Series? Was there? I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. But I didn't watch that. But I did read the book. All right, Among the Living had a lot of cool stuff musically going. That little change up, that little guitar change up riff right in there is just fantastic and really makes it stick in your head. There was a mini-series for The Stand in 1994 and another one in 2020. And I mean, the book, The Stand, is about, it's got a lot of COVID similarities. This flu spreads and it's weaponized. And so way ahead of his time. Stephen King was way ahead of his time. And of course, Metallica, who's up next month on these top 10s, that River's doing of the big four and thrash metal. Ride the Lightning, of course, is based off something that's said in The Stand as well. So they had some big influence, but nice song. All right, we got 2 songs left. We got Keep It in the Family from the Persistence of Time album in 1990. Over 7 minutes long. I expect this thing to cook instrumentally. Keep It in the Family. Really good song instrumentation-wise, but where this song was fire is actually the lyrics, which some people who just hear the name Anthrax might not, that aren't fans or don't know them, would think that that would not be the case. But to bring this song in 1990, where there's a lot of stuff going on, man. I mean, in 1990, but I don't know. I sometimes think there's more stuff going on with hatred of races and religions and peoples in 2025 than there was in 1990. And I mean, I'm 53 years old. I kind of asked myself, what the hell happened? How are we here now? Like, I would have never thought that. But people's jaded, sinful nature, man, it never goes away. It's time honored. But yeah, man, just to bring that, where they're calling out all kinds of racism. They're basically calling out, racism and hatred in general, a lot of times is systemic through a family, right? You grow up and your parents are saying this about someone. So when you're young, you're highly influenced. So of course, sometimes you take on the views of your parents. Thankfully, I didn't, especially my father, because he would fit into a lot of things that this song is talking about. No doubt. So thankfully, somehow I was able to escape that thought process and basically have the opposite. Maybe it's because me and him have the opposite thought process and actions on almost everything, thankfully, but really good song. Now we get to the number 1 song, I Am the Law, off Among the Living in 1986. River says, and finally their best song in my opinion. The heavy guitars, the singing, you can't help but want to shout back as Joey Belladonna sings it, I Am the Law. It's just really a fun song. I found it was a single, went to 93 in the Netherlands, 32 in the UK. It's about the 2000 AD character Judge Dredd and includes references to many of the character storylines up until 1987. I found a story on the Louder website, and I thought it was very interesting. So I'm just going to kind of read that to you. It's not real long, but I thought since it's number 1, it kind of deserves this treatment. Metal's strong bond with the world of comics has endured for decades now, but it's hard to argue against the most significant crossover of all, being Anthrax's immortal I Am the Law. A thunderous tribute to UK comic 2000 AD's most famous character, Judge Dredd, it provided guitarist Scott Ian with the perfect opportunity to indulge a newfound love. Scott discovered Dredd after visiting London's Forbidden Planet store while on a promo trip for his second album, Spreading the Disease, in early 1986. Scott recalls, the artwork looked so amazing and Dredd was so effing cool. I picked up a few copies, and every time I was in the UK, I'd hit up more comic shops looking for it. It was impossible to find in the States. I went to Forbidden Planet in New York City and I said, you guys don't carry 2000 AD? And they said, no, it's really hard for us to import. Because of me badgering them, they ended up getting a couple of copies every month and holding them for me. I was paying 5 times the price for them, and I'm pretty sure they were pocketing the money, but I just needed my Judge Dredd fix. On that tour with Metallica, we already had the riffs for I Am the Law, he remembers. It sounded really anthemic. So what better to write about than this comic book character who just defined anthemic to me? It just worked. What did I know at the ripe old age of 22 or 23? I knew comics, horror, and sci-fi. I knew skateboarding. I didn't really have much life experience. I couldn't really write about heartbreak or horrible upbringing because I didn't have those. I was just writing about what I knew. I just think it's a great song that still holds up. I think that's what's great about any classic song. You just don't get tired of them. That's how I feel as a guy who has to play it over and over again. There are many songs in our set that come and go, but if we play I Am the Law at every show between now and the end of Anthrax, I wouldn't have a problem with that. As soon as I bust into that riff, I can't help but be happy. I just thought that was some great stuff, some great info from Scott. All right, let's get to it. River's number 1 Anthrax song, I Am the Law. All right, River was right. By the end of that song, I was chanting I Am the Law. I only know Judge Dredd because Stallone made a movie of him, man, way back when. Otherwise, I don't know anything about him. But it's interesting that people might have discovered him through Scott's song right here, right? The guitar work by Dan and Scott were next level. Charlie's drumming was fantastic. And obviously, Joey could really bring it. I didn't get a flavor. I'm assuming Joey was by far the best vocalist. And he was the one that was on the most albums. But that's why I took you through that thing at the start. Because it's really odd for a band to go through that many lead singers. But, Joey's appearing on almost all of these. So he's fantastic. He could really bring it. He has that power that you have to have for this stuff. So great choice. All right, now we're going to go to my favorite tracks. And I got to tell you, we're 3 of the 4 through the big thrash metal for Metallica's next. And when River told me that they were going to do this series, I'm like, yeah. For me in my head, I'm thinking thrash metal, probably not my thing, but boy, kind of is. Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax so far. Megadeth was my least favorite, and they're by far the most commercially successful of these three bands so far. Obviously, Metallica is on another level in fame and fortune and success. But honorable mentions, Armed and Dangerous and Madhouse, both off the same album. Faves are going to be Bring the Noise, Caught in a Mosh, Keep It in the Family, I Am the Law, and my favorite one was Breathing Lightning, I think, but I don't know. Maybe it's not. So that's 7 songs. That's insane. I don't know if I think Anthrax or Slayer is better. I don't really know, but both really good. Thrash metal, definitely have a different opinion of it after doing these 3 top 10s, but Metallica's next. Let me know your favorite tracks from River's list below and what other tracks you love from Anthrax. And until next time, guys, I will see you.